Let's do some art. Scratch that. Let's do a Scratchboard.
Ha!
So a Scratchboard, for those of you who don't know, is a board that you scratch and it makes a mark and you can make art with that. But you don't have to start off with a board, you can get sheets. This is Scratchboard paper. I've gotten some starter kits, which has everything you need, maybe, hopefully. I don't know, let's find out. All right, let's give this a go, shall we? I've got a variety of different things to try. Starting off with, I mean, that looks scratchy. Cool. That's a pretty sharp, nice looking line, actually. This is like one big scratchy. You just don't win anything. Well, it's all right, we'll win some awesome art, hopefully. All right, so that's our first scratchy. Then we have this. These, I guess these are like for shading or gradienting maybe. Maybe you build it up to get a fully opaque area. But you can do calligraphy with this though. It's not very good. All right, next. Definitely feels like I'm scratching. Oh, they're like hair and stuff. That's so cool. I like that. That's really cool. I've got this. Then we have steel wool. All right, well, I mean, I've had a muck around with all the basic tools. I get it now. I get all the different tools. I get how the Scratchboard thing works. Now let's see if I can make something that looks good. What do you want to see?
T-Rex.
That's a great idea. The first challenge I come across, of course, is how the heck do you sketch? I did a little dabble on a piece of paper with a pencil to see if it erases, and well, no. The eraser basically rubs back the surface area in the same way that scratching does. So it just came down to basically really, really lightly sketching with some scratching utensils. I initially approached drawing the way that I would approach any drawing, with the construction and then going into the line work. And while I think as I added the details, it started to look pretty cool and I thought it was really interesting, it wasn't as cool as I had hoped it would be. And I think it just came down to the fact that I had the wrong approach. I'd never used a Scratchboard before, and of course I'm learning by mucking around, but the obvious thing is that I'm drawing the lines in white on a black background, meaning the values are just reversed. And I hadn't yet gotten a handle of the fact that really I need to work from a values approach rather than a line work approach. I tried to start to wrangle that in as I did the hair or feathers or whatever it is you'd call them on this weird T-Rex in a way that, you know, might look like they're picking up on the lighting in the scene and then adding the trees in the scene in a way that looks a little more shaded. But it was a bit too little too late. The whole picture was approached from a line work perspective and light was not playing an important scene from the foundation level of this picture. So to bring that in later just really wasn't working for me. So I did a second dabble, this time with a nice life drawing skull. I just used one of the many I've collected over the years. Sorry. And this I approached quite differently. I sketched with a very, very light touch with my scratcher and then went through basically by painting the lighting, gently working in the lighter areas and gradually intensifying to the greatest moments of highlight throughout the piece. And this immediately was working way better and I was getting super excited and really into it. So into it, in fact, that I couldn't stop myself and then I ruined it by going too far. I mean, it's all part of the dabble after all. But yeah, there was certainly a point at which I'd finished the skull, done a little bit of the surface around the skull and should have stopped. And I guess that's another thing to learn through the process of doing it, is that it's easy to overdo and you can't undo it. So these are my doubles. My T-Rex turned out okay. It's all right. I learnt a little bit. I mainly learnt that approaching it just as line art doesn't work very well, in my opinion. Which is why this next one, the skull one, I really liked until all of a sudden I don't like it. I really liked it because I approached it basically by shading with light, like I mentioned, but then I took it too far. And that's the other thing I learned. It's one of those things where if you go further than you should, there's no going back. And I mean, I tried to fix it and made it worse still. But I learned a lot. And having had no experience with it and just experiencing that for myself the first time, it was really, really cool. Now it's time to get a little bit of guidance. Incredible Tabby Cat Scratchboard cat. Man, what is it with cats? All the needle felting things I did, all of them were cats. Oh wait, you're coloring it. Ooh, I wonder if you can do like a wash over the whole thing. Were they scratching away the color as well? They are? What? They put the color down after they scratched away the black, and then they're scratching away the black and the color. Very interesting. What else is there? Tiger Scratchboard. Technically a cat still. That's really cool. Wow, it's very, very good. Absolutely astounding. So they're doing like reverse cross hatching. And it seems like the most effective way to do scratchboard art is to build up to the highest highlights and leave areas blank where there's shadow, which is tricky because I sort of tend to want to draw the whole construction of something before I shade it. So it's a challenge. So this is a video about adding color to Scratchboard. They're just using inks like watercolors, but you can do like a wash. Oh, cool, yeah. It might have to be quite subtle color because it probably will still build up on the black. That looks pretty cool. All right, I'm learning. So I'm gonna muck around with adding a little bit of color to mine because that's my final dabble. And if I know how color works on my Scratchboard dabbles, then I know how to go forward with it in the dive. Start off with my T-Rex. What does it look like with just some washes? Let's maybe do like, you know, a bit of green in the background trees. Now this may not work simply because this is a different thing to the scratch boards. Like this is like scratchboard paper. Anyways, I'm gonna just try and do a bit of an ink wash in the background trees. I mean, it picks it up, but then I've got this weird like color smudge. Maybe if I water it down. I don't know, this doesn't feel like it's doing good stuff. Just splooping all over the trees. Can I wipe it away and it stays in the white? No, it disappears entirely. I think it's safe to say I still don't know what I'm doing. Some of them used pencils. Can I use pencils? Oh, sorta. That's not bad actually. I feel like it's further scratching still though. Color's sorta going down. So that's a maybe. Maybe I could do just like some accents, just like little hints of color in poppy places. Well, let's move on to the piece I liked a little bit better, the skull. Maybe let's play with some subtlety. Let's get a watered down red. Maybe pick like a direction for shadow on the underside. I mean, that's pretty cool. Just a little bit of color does pop. And then, all right, let's get interesting. Let's highlight up to a light blue. Yeah, it's not really soaking into whatever the layer underneath is, unless it has more of the pigment. Yeah, that's not really doing anything. Well, that's what the dabble's for, after all. I've had a bit of a muck around. I think there's some stuff that's working, and there's definitely some stuff that's not quite working yet. But I've experimented enough to the point where I feel like I know what I could do reasonably well. Bit of shading with lighting, and my style is much more of a heavy-handed approach. So maybe something more comic book-esque, noir. Batman! Batman's friggin' perfect for this! Oh, Gotham. It's like Gothic. That's why this works so well. It's like Gothic in style. Yeah, okay. Now it's time to dive. With our double done and time for the dive, the best part about the dive, or at least the way I approach it, is I take all the things that I've learned from my dabbles and apply the things that I'm strongest or most confident in and utilize the techniques I've learned to create a piece that basically works to my strengths in the limited scope that I've achieved. So in this style, I sketched a Batman silhouette, gently worked in the details, and started to do the lines, but not from an approach of doing line work, but more of an approach of doing edge highlighting, as if he was a fully shaded character, drawing only where the sharpest highlights and backlight effects would hit. Now with that core rim lighting put down, it's from there that I could start to add, bit by bit, broader areas of shading and slowly build up the intensity. With Batman done, it was then on to the environments, and I wanted to separate the comic book aesthetic of the Batman in the foreground with a bit more of a naturalistic and textured environment with some different effects. Starting off with the steel wool to build up that smoky, foggy Gotham look, and obviously going way more intense around where the light source is of the bat signal. And then I went to town, absolutely crazy, with the rain effects, using the scrapers and using this textured all in the one direction, obviously having to go in the direction that the cape is blowing, and very quickly I was starting to really see why people like Scratchboard working. Like, obviously I'm no pro, but I can immediately feel that sensation of working with some really cool techniques here. The effects you can get of light and rain and smoke using these scratchboarding methods in combination with my natural comic book style were actually really fun, and I thought quite effective, especially for my first time. Last but not least, I went around all the edges where the rain would hit the surfaces and be struck by the light, stippling and dabbing the splashes of the rain hitting the surfaces. I'm not very great at it yet, but I'm really proud of this. I think this looks really cool. I am going to add color, and this as a final step might ruin it. The inked version that I did some color on before with matte varnish applied, it really flattens out and looks really nice, and it even sort of dims it down where the color is over the black areas. So I want to do a color wash over this whole thing. I just got to pick my colors carefully because I'm doing this once. Maybe I go blue for Batman and this building. I'll mix it with like orange and red to get a purpley background, maybe some magenta. I don't know, this is scary. Do I do yellow signal? I don't think I do yellow signal. It's pushing through the heat of the background. Maybe it ends up like orange or something. I think that's my plan. I have no idea if this is gonna work, but let's give it a crack. At every stage through this process of putting color down, I was scared. Felt like everything was ruining it, and I felt like it was being confirmed with every step, so I thought I'd seen the best of the picture. But it turns out, by sticking to my guns and just going through with it all the way to the end, I actually ended up with an effect that was working pretty cool from a color perspective, and then it hit me with a Scratchboard. I can scratch back the color. So I went back in and added sharp white highlights around the very edges of Batman to really make him stand out, and a touch of that extra glow in the bat signal. And this piece very quickly turned from something I thought I'd ruined into taking it to the next level. I love the effect. Like, okay, it's my first actual proper Scratchboard piece. But the fact that I could scratch after I did the color and bring that pop back in, oh, I'm so happy. Oh, I love it. Smash that like button, subscribe for more fun with art and creativity. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, but it's always gonna be fun. And I had fun today, and that's what matters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.